cards that are very effective. Doughty Voidwalker, shutting off all of the modular abilities, and Hangarback Walker's trigger, and so on. A lot of removal. Something like Fury plus Undying Mana on turn 1 can win this matchup just like any other. At the same time, the Hardened Scales deck, very resilient to a lot of traditional forms of interaction. So if Rakdos Scam in the hands of Thomas Deschamps just is trying to play this one-for-one game, that's not going to cut it if Samir's draw is at all functional here. So leading off with the Ozolith there, like one of the centerpieces of the Scales deck. And this is a card which leads to those out-of-nowhere lethal kills with Arcbound Ravager and so on. And the old dictum of Scales is, if you don't know if it's lethal, just do a quick count, and it probably is. And our math skills may get put to the test here over the course of this match.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, Dauthi Voidwalker being a huge part of this matchup. The nice thing about this particular Ozolith, it specifically says whenever a creature leaves the battlefield. So if you can load up a giant Hangarback Walker or something along those lines, even if your giant thing gets killed with a Voidwalker in play, those counters will still get put on the Ozolith. So that's very nice, especially if we do see a Dauthi Voidwalker here. Now, Ragavan, not the best against Hangarback Walker, because if you have a removal spell, you get a 1/1, so you got to use 2 removal spells, and pretty good start here for Samir.
Yeah, also that Urza Saga hiding out in the lands there for Samir as well. So not sure if he's even going to cast any spells over the next few turns. May decide better use of his time is just churning out these gigantic constructs and then finding an artifact of some kind on the way out. And in the Scales deck, that can be an Ozolith. That can be stuff like a Welding Jar as a form of protection. You can actually find these synergistic pieces that work really nicely with your main plan.
Yep, we see a Thoughtseize here for Thomas. Taking a peek at the hand, looks like 2 Stirrings, a Springleaf Drum, and a Nexus. So it does have the 3rd mana to be able to make construct tokens. That will also be able to check the Ragavan. So this Ragavan, typically not the best against Scales, but especially this draw, we got plenty of ways to check that Ragavan. And Thomas going to go ahead and fetch main phase for a swamp, maybe another discard spell. Potentially could have, I guess that now we did say that Hangarback Walker is good against Ragavan. However, if there is Fury, Pitch Spell plus, I guess Scam, which it looks like that might happen, we can actually go resolve the Fury trigger, kill the Hangarback. After the token comes into play, still with the Evoke in the stack, Undying Evil, then get the token, and that'll be able to connect with the Ragavan.
Exactly. So it took 3 cards and a lot of hoops being jumped through, but Ragavan is going to connect this turn when all is said and done. But you see why the Ozolith is so strong here, where that counter going to go on the Ozolith, and then the next threat that Samir presents is going to get larger. If that one dies, those counters go right back on the Ozolith, and then you rinse and repeat until the final threat sticks there. So Samir had a good start, but now has to contend with a 4/4 double striking Fury and the Ragavan and whatever else Thomas has left in the tank.
I just thought of something. I doubt it'll ever come up, but if you go hit Hardened Scales off of your opponent's deck, cast it off of the treasure, your Feign Death will actually put 2 counters on your creature.
You know what? I had not considered that, but that is technically true. Yes. So going to see Samir making a construct here and then doing that in his main phase to move that counter over to it. So that's a 2/2. That's now a 3/3. Still not big enough to tangle with the Fury in combat. Not much is at this stage, but can maybe hold off the Ragavan.
Yeah, giving us a decent-ish blocker for the Ragavan. Now, I want to take a look at the Scam list. I know some of these lists sometimes play Kolaghan's Command, but I do not see any copies of that card in Thomas's main deck. So it doesn't have to, that's something where you go Kolaghan's Command, blow up the Ozolith and the token. But if Thomas has just any removal spell, kill the token, get in for both, and there we see it terminates. This is going to be an attack for 10 damage. And Samir, now I will say there is an Inkmoth Nexus on Samir's side of the battlefield. So you always have to be a little bit careful. Inkmoth, even on an empty board, well, I guess it's not empty because there's the Ozolith, but even on an empty board, Inkmoth can still just provide a kill out of absolutely nowhere, especially when you can, if you have Hardened Scales in the mix. So we'll have to see what Samir can do next turn.
Yeah, so hypothetically, the Urza Saga can fetch Zabaz the Glimmerwasp, and then that has modular and also enhances other modular effects. So we aren't that far away from a sudden out-of-nowhere kill with the Nexus, but Thomas is not giving Samir a lot of time to stitch that together. So we'll see what kind of defense he can present. That said, if Samir can find another copy of Hangarback Walker, well, that thing, once it gets a lot of counters, can stall that big Fury almost indefinitely.
Right, even just being able to provide you 2 blockers, like a chump block in the Fury, get a 1/1, another block in the Fury next turn. So that can buy Samir a lot of time. We did see Thomas cast the Ancient Stirrings and find Castle Locksmith. I think that might be the first time that Castle Locksmith has ever been revealed off of Ancient Stirrings in the history of Modern. Willing to book that one.
but probably for good reason though as well. I mean, hey, you can imagine that the coffers deck, right? You can find your coffers, find your Urborg. We could cook something up here.
Yeah, we're definitely cooking all right. Samir's going to go ahead and float a mana, and okay, the Inkmoth is still there. So we're floating a mana, like you said, could get Zabaz. Now, unfortunately for Samir, does not have access to red mana, so would need a sacrifice outlet to be able to pop the Zabaz. But you could go, say, Animate Nexus with the colorless floating, and then maybe you go land, Ravager, sack the Zabaz, counter on the Nexus, which puts a counter on the Ozolith. That would be 2. The Ravager would be 2. You sack the Ravager. That's 4. I think you'd still be a little bit short if there's a land and a Ravager.
Yeah, it's going to be a tall order this turn, so I think the plan might be find a way to stay alive, not just die to the Fury, and then maybe consider a kill together over several turns.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, Hangarback Walker is like Samir's basic perfect defensive tool here because it provides you a blocker. Even if there's a removal spell from Thomas' side of things, you still get a chump blocker back, additional counter on the Ozolith. So that's kind of the card that Samir is definitely looking for here to provide the most amount of defense. And we'll have to see what this Ancient Stirrings can provide.
And Ancient Stirrings is a really nice card in the context of this deck where it misses your namesake card in Hardened Scales, misses the Ozolith, and so on, but it gets all of your lands, and you make good use out of a lot of your lands, and also gets all of your artifact synergy pieces as well.
Absolutely. Samir's definitely going into the tank on this Ancient Stirrings here. I wonder what we are thinking about. Maybe a tough decision here. So trying to remember what was the leftovers from the Thoughtseize. I feel like we don't know anything in Samir's hand. The Springleaf Drum, I should say. We do know there's a Springleaf Drum, but I think other than that, that might be the only known information. But yeah, really looking for Hangarback, a Ballista, maybe not a Ballista, but Hangarback, Ravager, maybe even a second Zabaz where you can Legend Rule, move the counters into the Nexus. But that one doesn't really do that great of a job blocking the Fury.
Yeah, you need to block the Fury this turn and not lose your whole board in the process. That said, with the Nexus there, trying to think here. So you play as the Baz, you animate the Nexus in there somewhere, you move a counter to the Ozolith, and then double modular onto something. Maybe you can chump block and then set up lethal for the next turn there. But this is what we were talking about before, where there's a lot of math that you have to do on the fly, and you got to be skilled at that, or you're going to have a bad time with this deck.
Absolutely. So Welding Jar is going to be the reveal here for Samir. That's kind of like a chump blocker where you can just go block with the Zabaz. I don't.
That's an invention of some. I want to say that's Ravager.
No idea. I don't think it's Ravager. I want to say, well, that's really the only other one it could be. Because it's what? Ravager, Hangarback are the only inventions, unless it's Ballista, but I don't remember Ballista ever being an invention.
No, I want to say, I mean, if that's a second Hangarback, that is a big deal for Samir.
Yeah. Hangarback is Samir's definitely Samir's best card. Well, we're probably going to find out in combat here.
Yeah, so Welding Jar being used to let the blocker stick around even after taking damage here. So we're going to sack this to, yeah, there we go.
Okay, it is Ravager.
Yep.
Or not. Nope, chat's saying it's Ballista. Okay.
Ballista, okay. Secret Lair Ballista, living out to its name. So that makes sense as well here. And then, yeah, so Zabaz is going to put the modular counter there, also fire one up on the Ozolith. What that means now is if the Ballista sticks around and can pick up those counters from the Ozolith, it can shoot down the Fury, and now the board is clear, and Samir has a lot more breathing room to stabilize there.
Yeah, exactly. So Fury, we did go ahead and block the Ragavan in combat. The Fury is still on the battlefield. I believe we've activated Castle Locktwain, and I'm going to go ahead and fire up a Thoughtseize. Take a look and see what Samir's leftovers are. I know that one's Ravager. That one I know for a fact.
We do have our colleague Mason Clark in the chat saying against a tide that is in fact a Hangarback Walker. I think he's been solidly outruled on that one. So his fake news will not distract us.
So can we confirm or deny? Is this the first time that Mason has lost the Triumph game? Because this is effectively the Triumph game, right?
It sure is.
All right, Springleaf Drum. We're going to put some counters on things. Okay, it has to be a Ballista.
We did it, chat. Good job.
2 turns later, we figured out what it was. All right, so Fury's going to be taken down, which is, wanted to do that while Thomas was tapped out because of the presence of the scam spells. Pretty good follow up here for Thomas. Fable's going to go ahead and not only provide a 2/2 that can threaten Samir's life total a little bit, but also filter out some other cards that might be in Thomas's hand that are left over that may be useless. So we'll have to see what Samir can follow up. Now, we still do have that Inkmoth Nexus. Unfortunately for Samir, we had to use all of our Ozolith counters to kill the Fury with the Ballista. So we're going to have to go ahead and spend a little bit of time kind of rejuicing the Ozolith there.
But we do have that Urza Saga hanging out. And if you trade off all your resources, the board is clear. Whoever has the Urza Saga is pretty far ahead, and I expect that to hold up here, even in the face of that Fable.
Yeah, that's a good point. Saga can make, I can actually technically make a 4/4. You can make a 3/3 and then use the Inkmoth to make it a 4/4 in combat. So it does have a blocker for the Fable token. Have to see if maybe Thomas has a removal spell left over, something like a Terminate or something along those lines. Going to go ahead, only discard one.
Seems like Samir may have missed the attack with the Ballista before dumping all of those cannons on the Fury. So Thomas could be in single digits right now, which would make it a lot easier to stitch together a kill with one of those construct tokens.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. The pretty big difference in Thomas is a 10 versus 6.
Yeah, may have all just been one motion, though, so I don't want to commit too strongly to that one. So Ragavan being dashed here, going to try and make a 3/3 construct in combat. So I imagine Thomas has some kind of response for that.
Yeah, because both 2-power creatures are attacking into the 3/3. Oh, we're actually just going to go ahead and let the Ragavan die. Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I guess I'm wondering if you want to bolt before attacks. No, because then you just animate the Inkmoth and it trades anyways.
Yeah. So it's either another construct or something even scarier than another construct, but looks like it's just a 4/4 and counting.
I'm going to go ahead and sack the Saga. I have to imagine we're going to go ahead and get a Zabaz here because we actually do have red mana off of the Springleaf Drum now.
We do. Samir does also have a main deck Shadowspear, which is not actually the automatic inclusion that you would expect in a lot of these Saga decks, but that would be a tempting option as well. Does in fact go for the Zabaz as you predicted.
Yeah, and that one's kind of nice with the Ozolith. Now, tapped the Inkmoth Nexus, so we can't try to go for... we probably wouldn't have enough for an Inkmoth to kill anyways, but that is off the table for this turn, but is providing... it's a third copy of Urza Saga, too, and has a lot of blockers for this 2/2. And yeah, I mean, this might just be Samir stabilizing with Urza Saga soloing this game.
As it is definitely want to do. And Scales is a deck where you take a lot of these contextually kind of weaker cards and then you stitch them all together and they're more than the sum of their parts. But sometimes you just beat people up with an Urza Saga, and that's a really nice failsafe for any kind of synergy deck like this.
Yeah, it's hard to go wrong when you put four copies of that card in your deck. And Thomas going to go ahead and deploy a land here first to take less damage off of the castle activation, but in a lot of trouble here. Really needs to find... I guess Fury is probably Thomas's best draw step here, as is usually the case. Although the Fury is kind of awkward here because if you deal 4 to the construct, you can just make the Inkmoth the creature to make it a 5/5. So you actually can't even kill the construct here. So yeah, it really wants to find maybe a spot removal spell, a Terminate, or something along those lines to get that construct off the battlefield.
Fury, a great card against small creature decks, which is kind of is. On the other hand, so many of these creatures either leave something behind on their way out when they die, or can grow to the point where Fury doesn't even kill them or block them effectively. And so at that point, Fury, I mean, there's only so bad that card can ever be, but it maybe isn't as strong as it looks on paper in the matchup.
Yeah, especially like you said, when you're just getting beat down by all these 5/5s and 6/6s. We're going to go ahead and start with a Canopy here. That's basically Samir's version of Castle Lochthwain.
Sure.
And we'll have to see what Samir can find. So we're going to go ahead and get to the red zone. Not a lethal construct, but is going to go ahead and get a chump block out of Thomas here. And yeah, just content with making more Saga tokens, as I would probably be too.
Yeah, the Reflection of Kiki Jiki is active now in case Thomas has yet another Fury or something else to pair with that. But even then, I think Samir is poised to get over the finish line here.
Yeah, so the second Fury is weird. You can't really set up a spot where you can't attack with the Fury and also threaten copy in combat to kill the construct, because you would have to go play the Fury, then copy it to get the 3/3 haster. And if that happens, Samir can just either make a construct token, potentially trade with the Fury, or just there is a Fury,
All
but
right.
I'm actually not sure it's good enough. This might be a spot where you just pass with the reflection up.
Yeah, this is going to be a very tricky turn. So yeah, if you just shoot that for 4, yeah, we're doing the correct count. So you can't kill the construct straight up. You would have to copy it and then try and use both triggers to finish it off. But then if you're doing that, the shields are down, you've tapped your reflection, and it seems like Samir can overwhelm the one Fury that's left on defense.
Right. Well, actually, okay, so there's 4 artifacts right now in place. So if you target the construct for 4, Samir has 2 options. You can either go Nexus animate itself or make another construct to make it a 5/5. But if you make the construct a 5/5,
yeah,
then
so
you can
now we're
kill the
doing this.
other construct. We're gonna do this in response to the construct. Huh.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see.
Interesting.
See if there's any kind of shortcut here. So, but now
Now you have a blocker. Well, I guess you would have had a blocker anyways because of the Zabaz.
so it's Zabaz is taking lethal damage too. So that kind of goes on the Ozolith, and it kind of goes on the construct from the modular. So now that token is a 4/4, and we can still animate the Nexus at instant speed to grow it to 5. So we have to chump block the copy now.
Yeah, well, yeah. So the regular Fury won't be able to attack, but we do have to block. Yeah, we'd have to block that either way. So we have to essentially trade there or chump block, and then yeah, this is actually kind of a rough spot for Samir here. You know,
Did he remember the cannon moving to the Ozolith?
That's a good point. I'm not sure that he did. Is that some? I'm guessing that might be a mandatory, or I don't know if it is. Let's see if we can bring up the Ozolith. Whenever creature control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters. But yeah, it looks like that may have been missed. I know triggers these days. It's weird. There's some things that you can miss. There's some things you can't. Rewinds, all that stuff. So I'm not under. I honestly don't know if that's a trigger that can be missed. But looks like the indication is that the additional counter was not put on the Ozolith. So I'm gonna go with that. That was missed at this particular juncture.
Yeah. So Samir is just adding a bunch of stuff. It's unclear if that can actually overwhelm a Fury trigger and having to block, I guess, both Furies now each turn.
Yeah, we're like you said, we're making like a wall of chump blockers. We do still have Springleaf Drum available, so we can chump block with Nexus, but we're gonna have 2 lethal Furies attacking. I'm not really sure that Samir can save enough of his board to be able to survive.
That Saga should be in the graveyard as well. We'll see if we can get the table charge on that.
Yeah. Okay, that was
right
as you said. But yeah, that Fury top deck from Thomas is going to put Samir in a world of trouble. That was easily Thomas's best top deck. And now is able to copy the Fury and attack with 2 Furies. So you can go. So right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 artifacts. So the construct is currently a 6/6 with the Nexus potentially making it a 7/7. And then you have the 2/2, or excuse me, 1/1 Zabaz. So if you say copy Fury, you could deal 1, 2. Yeah, I guess you go 1 to Zabaz, 3 to the construct. Samir goes respond. Use the drum and the Zabaz to animate the Nexus, have 2 blockers for the 2 Furies, but then you're in a spot where Samir has nothing left on the battlefield.
Yeah, and that is the universes beyond Hardened Scales there.
Oh, I knew that one. I thought, okay, yeah, that one is Hardened Scales.
All right, so that makes the map a little more interesting. This,
Okay, we need. Well, I think this is lethal, right? Because if you animate the Nexus in response, Thomas just goes. So you use the Zabaz to animate the Nexus. Well, I guess it doesn't matter because how do the layers work? If you animate the Nexus and then Blood Moon resolves, it's no longer a creature, right?
No, I think it still will be a creature, but the issue here is having to tap a creature for the Springleaf Drum to animate. You have to do that now, which means whichever one is now untapped, either the Nexus or the Zabaz, the Fury can then just shoot that down, and now 2 lethal attackers are there. So I think Thomas has lethal however he slices it.
Yeah, at this point, no matter how you slice it, yeah, like you said, there's going to be two lethal attackers with only one blocker.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure that even the top deck of Fury, the perfect top deck, would be good enough, but sure enough, that's a pretty powerful combination, and Thomas looks poised to take down this first game here.
Yep, and that is gonna do it. All right, Thomas gonna go ahead and win game number one with that very, very timely top deck of Fury, and we're gonna go ahead and come back to the booth here for a second. So that was I guess I would say a relatively convincing, but I mean, I feel like that game was pretty close up until the top deck Fury.
Yeah, there was a lot of back and forth, and there were a few points where if Samir had drawn the Ravager or like another Hangarback Walker at the perfect moment, then he would move far ahead. Or if Thomas was able to, find the Fury that he eventually found at the perfect time, then he would swing it back in his favor too. So matchups like this, both very intricate but also very swingy at the same time, and that's some of the best Magic to watch in my view.
Absolutely. So maybe we can get the sideboards on screen here for you in just a second. So we have Samir, Hardened Scales list. Let's take a look at the sideboard. We have a Haywire Might, 2 Soulless Jailer, 2 Orvar the All Form, 2 Dismember, 3 Force of Vigor, Chalice the Void, Graph Digger's Cage, Pithing Needle, Relic of Progenitus, and a lovely Gemstone Caverns. What do you like in this matchup from Samir's side of things?
I do like the dismembers. So just being able to kill a 4/4 Fury that came in on turn one, or sometimes you can break up that angle, killing it in response to the Undying Malice. Killing Doughty Void Walker is going to be a big deal, freeing up your modular and your Hangarback Walker too. So would expect to see those come in. And then beyond that, there's a lot of specific hate from matchups that are not this one, so you can ignore most of those cards. So pretty minimal sideboarding here from Samir, I would expect, and that makes sense. If you're a synergy deck, you don't want to be exchanging your synergy pieces for cards that don't help that plan, especially when your opponent has so much interaction to break up what you're doing.
Right. Really hard to fight a lot the kind of the one for one removal battle when you're just kind of boarding into or boarding out a lot of your synergy pieces. And then speaking of the one for one removal deck, let's see if we can get Thomas's deck list on screen for you. So we have a Orcish Bowmaster Sighting, Jump Scare, 2 Turok Dreadcanter, 2 Orvar the All Form, 2 Necromentia, 2 Chalice the Void, 2 Engineered Explosives, Ratchet Bomb, 2 Unlicensed Tourists, and a Blood Moon. What do we like here, Dom?
Like the explosives, so many of the scale decks permanents are either they cost 0, so they're Hangarback Walkers, Walking Ballistas, and so on, or they have a bunch of tokens from Hangarback Walker, Urza Saga, so cleans all of that up. Ratchet Bomb is going to come in for the same reason. You can make a case for the Bowmasters, I think. Sometimes just instant speed, shoot down your one toughness thing, get a few bodies. That could do something. It's not that inspiring. And then we saw Blood Moon be the thing that officially ended that game one, but it's a pretty high risk, high reward card here. Right? Sometimes it kills a Saga, sometimes it shuts off what would be a lethal Inkmoth Nexus, other times it does nothing against the almost entirely colorless deck.
Right, and the awkward part about Blood Moon is the Hardened Scales deck doesn't have access to a ton of red mana to activate Zabaz, and sometimes when you cast Blood Moon, you're actually fixing their mana for a Zabaz, so you have to. It's kind of like a double-edged sword thing. Going back to Orcish Bowmasters, I think the case for bringing it in here is we want to see it on coverage, so that would be something that I would consider, at least if I was in Thomas's standpoint.
If you wait for tomorrow, I have a feeling you can see some Orcish Bowmasters there. But if you just can't wait, then maybe this is the right time for it.
Yep. All right. So we're gonna get to the sideboard games here. So with Thomas taking down game one, does that change your? Do you still you're still on the same? You still think that the Rakdos set there is what matchup? I can't speak. What side of the matchup do you like, Dom? Postboard.
I I think I would still prefer to be on the scale side, but it's pretty close. And with Samir being down a game, like it's going to be an uphill battle. And the scam deckers, anyone who has played against it in Modern can testify. You can think you have a nice draw lined up and so on, and then they scam you on turn one. They do what their deck is designed to do and just put you out of the game real quick. So I think Thomas is in a good spot here, and Samir going down to 6, so going to be starting out behind already.
Yeah, and Dothi Voidwalker was something that we talked about being able to shut off the modular and the Hangarback Walkers, and that was something we didn't see game one. Thomas just kind of fought through the Hangarback Walker, like we saw the Fury scam Fury just to kind of get it off the board. But not only, you kind of in the spot like that, you trade off a couple of cards to answer the Hangarback Walker, but the prize is you get a 4/4 double strike. So was able to just kind of put a ton of pressure on Samir and was able to cross the finish line with Fury. So that is, yeah, I'm kind of with you. I kind of like the scam side of things, but let's see what happens here. So Samir's going to keep on 6, going to lead us off with an Inkmoth and the Zabaz.
Yeah, and we saw game one, Samir missing a few counters being moved to Ozolith back and forth at various points, and that game was decided on such thin margins that when you go back and watch that VOD, you think, well, maybe there was a missed opportunity there somewhere. So if Samir can keep it tight for game 2 here, then hopefully we'll be able to convert on that this time around.
Yeah, and now we actually know which which particular funny version of the Walking Ballista that Samir has. Now we actually know the correct art. So if Samir is to cast that, we will know what it was. So we're going to go ahead and start off with a Fury here. That leads me to believe there's probably going to be a scam, because I can't imagine you'd want to just use a Fury on the Zabaz without it.
Yeah, it's not such a secret anymore. We've got it clocked.
All right, turn 1 Hogak, your turn. Samir, what can you do?
Is this literally Hogak, Devin?
Well, I mean, it attacks for 8. What more do you want, right? Like, it's just Hogak is an 8/8, Fury 4/4 double strike.
It's a lot closer to Hogak than some other things I've heard called Hogak recently. I'll just leave it at that.
True. Hey, I mean, we won't get into those conversations. All right, so we see a second land here from Thomas. No blocks here from the Hangarback. You're right. We just took the 8. Okay, which I guess makes sense because you want to kind of load up the Hangarback a little bit more before you decide to chump block with it, especially if you have a Hardened Scales follow up, or you go Scales, make it a 3/3, then you get 3 blockers out of it. But likely, I can't imagine you want to go to 4 here, so you probably do have to block this turn. And Thomas going to go ahead.
Ideally, you want to load more counters. You want a bigger Hangarback so that then produces more trump blockers on its way out, but not actually that easy to get those on that if you didn't have a Scales effect in advance.
Oh, cool boy. And Samir kind of getting a little punished for not blocking last turn. But, well, I mean, not necessarily not getting punished. It's the line, he chose not to block because he wanted to get a second counter, but getting very, very punished for what we assume to be the top deck, Dothi Voidwalker, but is going to go ahead and dismember the Fury, I'm guessing. It looked like it was pointed at the Fury, although there is a consideration to kill the Voidwalker here and just let the Fury. No, I guess you would still kill the Fury.
Yeah, well, if you think that, you can just fog the Fury indefinitely, if you like, then if you have larger plans with a Ravager or another Hangarback, let's say, maybe the Voidwalker is actually the scarier card at this point.
Yeah, it's also weird because I wonder if you're worried about a scam spell where you target I guess scam spell blows you out regardless, because if you target the Fury, it gets scammed, it comes back, the Hangarback gets exiled.
Yeah.
If you target the Voidwalker, it's scam, comes back, damage happens. So no matter what, a scam spell probably beats you regardless. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and kill the Fury, and then looks like a Shadowspear is being equipped, and we're just gonna go beatdowns here. Get in for 3, gain a little bit of life. It is now a 3/3 lifelink does kind of sort of check the Dothi Voidwalker, and there is a Dismember under the Voidwalker, but if the Voidwalker gets sacrificed to cast the Dismember, it's no longer on the battlefield. So the Hangarback Walker would die, getting Samir some tokens in the process. So that's kind of where we are at. Now, we'll have to see if Thomas does have an engineered explosives to follow it up. So that in combination with the Dothi Voidwalker can cleanly take care of that Hangarback Walker. So we'll have to see. Going to punch in for 3 points of damage here. Chat, bear with us. It looks like we may have lost Dom for a quick second, but you're in the fateful hands. You're in good hands until Dom comes back. So Samir is going to go ahead and play a Gemstone Caverns, get a Welding Jar here, so that can potentially protect the Hangarback Walker for a turn. We're going to respond with explosives. Makes sense. We're going to go counter on here. So it's going to get exiled. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I guess Samir was thinking that he was going to get another counter, or excuse me, another 1/1, but because of the Dothy, it does get exiled. So plunk in with the Nexus. Get in for 2, gain a little bit of life there for Samir. Is worried a little bit about getting raced here. Not a lot he can really do. And we'll see Thomas crack a fetch land here. Potentially waiting until we get to land 5 to be able to cast a Fury. And we will see. Yeah, so chat's mentioning about the Welding Jar. The Welding Jar was on the stack before the Engineered Explosive got sacrificed. So the Welding Jar then resolved after the EE got popped. So Welding Jar just kind of chilling out here. I'm going to punch in for 3. Maybe a Fable as a follow-up. Yep, there it is. Go ahead and make a 2/2. I wish we had the Theo, Connor, and Max token, but we'll take this. We'll take what we can get, I guess. But this is going to be kind of rough from Samir's point of view. Like, there's too much here for Thomas. We got a Fable, a Voidwalker, and Samir doesn't really have any sort of pressure right now. Doesn't have a scale, so normally top deck stuff like Hangarback or Ravager would be good, but those are also checked by the Voidwalker, so doesn't really have a lot of good draws here at this particular stage. We'll have to see what Samir can go ahead and find out. Looks like we get a Hangarback, which is not bad. Hangarback 2/2 can equip with the Shadowspear, make it a 3/3. Potentially try to race the Voidwalker. Maybe Thomas has some kind of removal spell to get rid of the Hangarback Walker. Let's see what we got. Again, chat, be patient. Bear with us. Again, we appear to have lost Dom. Not really sure what's going on, but I will do my best to entertain you as best as I can. I'm not as funny as Dom, but you're going to have to deal with me for a little bit. So we see an attack here from Dothy, Voidwalker, and the Fable token. Going to go ahead and get a treasure that can potentially allow us to cast a Fury. That'd be a pretty good one. No, never mind. We're just going to go ahead and fire off 2 bolts. So that is going to be lethal damage. Thomas taking 2-0 over Samir. Rakdos scam over Hardened Scales. Going to put Thomas at 7-1, potentially with the ability to draw into top 8 in the last round. Now, we do have a very large event, so breakers can kind of get weird sometimes. So it's unclear whether or not Thomas will be able to draw next round, but either way, congratulations to Thomas. Now, we'll have to see. I believe we may have had a backup match. Not quite sure on the status of that. All right, so it looks like we are going to get you right into our backup match here. Give us 1 second here. We have Christopher Shavers on the right, featuring Azorius Control, and we have Cat Miller Granger on the left with Mono Green Tron. Now, this Mono Green Tron deck list, I will tell you, chat, and all of you watching, we have quite a few copies of the One Ring. I still think it's kind of a flavor fail that there are 4 copies of the One Ring across the 75, but I guess that's just old man yelling at clouds kind of thing. So we see Christopher, who I believe was on the play here. Oh, we have a special guest joining us. Who is this? I'm doing all right. Well, now I guess chat has to listen to somebody else now.
Clark yet again. Oh my goodness. What is happening so far here, Doom? I just hopped in for a second. Did we the Hardened Scales player lose? What happened?
Yeah, so Rakdos Scam took that match down 2-0, and we got a backup match here. Mono Green Tron against Azorius Control. This Mono Green Tron deck list has got a lot of copies of the One Ring, and I am pretty excited to see this one play out.
I am a One Ring fan, so I came in at the right time. This deck looks pretty good. I don't know how much have you got to play any of this, Doom?
No. Well,
Hmm.
I mean, considering that the card is basically non-existent on Magic Online, no, I've not had the opportunity to play with it. I kind of want to,
Mhm.
but every morning I wake up and I go to my ManaTrader's account and I just spam rent, refresh rent, and
Mhm.
to no avail. I usually spend about an hour and have not been able to gather any copies of it.
And it looks like Dom is back, so I will leave since it seems to be solved.
We had a quick Mason jump scare, as it were. We are so back.
Shavers on Azorius Control, which historically this has been kind of a bloodbath in favor of the mono green Tron deck. And in a weird way, I feel like the control decks these days are less well equipped to take the fight to mono green Tron because their mana can't really support the Field of Ruins and so on that you used to see. Cards like Stony Silence have really fallen out of favor. So you kind of just have to trade one for one, and that's not a winning recipe against Tron going long.
Right. And the other funny thing about the fact that Cat is playing so many copies of the One Ring, it's one of those situations where, you remember where the post, like against Tron, even if you had a bunch of Field of Ruins, you would Field of Ruin a couple times, but then they would still just get to 6 or 7 lands and start hard casting things. And then, it's unclear whether or not those things actually beat your removal spells. So the thing here is, even in those games where like you're kind of cutting your Tron opponent off of mana, you just cast the One Ring. If that resolves, you're drawing, 5, 6, 7, 8 cards because the blue eye control player is not pressuring the Tron player.
Yeah, you still have to seek out a hand that can make turn 3 Tron. That's the name of the game. But that's not always going to happen. The opponent won't always let you do that. And in those games, having this play which can run away with the game just on turn 4, you cast it off 2 forests and 2 random Tron lands. That's a really big deal to have access to. So I think there are a lot of good decks for the One Ring. I think Tron is actually a pretty good home for it as well. And part of that is, honestly, if you go against another deck with the One Ring, which we saw George DeBoer play in his Blue Eye Control deck, then you need a way to go over the top of the other people doing the same thing. Tron is really good at going over the top of basically anything, given enough time.
Exactly. So if we take a look at the game here, not a ton has been happening. We got a couple of Tron lands and a Chromatic Sphere for Cat, and then a Teferi, Time Raveler, Memory Deluge, and some stuff here for Christopher. But to be honest with you, this is kind of what's going to be happening. It's going to be a lot of Cat trying to develop their mana and, just really get to cast the Haymakers. And, in the instance of stuff like Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, and Cityscape Lover, and I guess that's another kind of wrinkle to this matchup is, before it was Ulamog was the only thing you had that kind of beat a counter spell, but now you have access to Ulamog and Cityscape Leveler. And the other thing is that even if the Cityscape Leveler gets countered, it has Unearth, which then you can then get it back, and just a lot of problems here for the blue eye control player.
Yeah, it looks like Shavers is playing the Blue Eye Control list that noted control expert Guillaume Tapper was doing well with on Magic Online, which doesn't really have a lot of those anti-Tron tools. And also, the ones that it did have in the sideboard, stuff like Crumble to Dust, looks like Shavers has cut those, not expecting a lot of Tron today, which I think in general is a fine gamble, but really getting punished for it against Cat here.
Yeah, absolutely. And Cat did peel the last Tronland, I believe. I don't think Cat had it in their hand, so it looks like that might have been a peel. Now we have to see if they have a payoff here. Got a green mana floating off the Chromatic Star, and that's a lot of mana. That sure looks like a payoff to me.
Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing about the levelers and the One Ring is that the recipe before was you had to get all 3 different Tron lands. That in itself was a tall order sometimes. And then you needed a good use for all that mana. And sometimes a card like Wormcoil Engine, sometimes that's your best threat, sometimes it's your worst threat, right? Whereas cards like Leveler or the One Ring are good against basically everybody all the time. And so you can guarantee that half of the equation at least, even if assembling Tron is still pretty difficult.
Right, exactly. Now I did talk about the fact that Cityscape Leveler had Unearth, but doesn't unearth from exile when it gets solituded. So that is a pretty good answer here for Christopher. Did lose the Teferi in the process, but was able to kind of cleanly answer that Cityscape Leveler and going back about his business. Maybe looks like we're potentially tapping 3 mana, maybe a follow-up to Fairy. Well, not if we're going to tap the Power Stone here. Power Stone to pick up Kahira. You'll love to see it. Dom, if you thought Kahira couldn't get any better, what about when we could use the Power Stone to pick it up?
I like that. You also see it as well. I guess you can't use it to pay for the filter land. That's very unfortunate. But yeah, you'll find some other use for it. It'll be fine.
And that is Ulamog, the Box of Wheaties. I believe that is the secret layer version of Ulamog. And I'm going to go ahead and pick up a Sundering Titan. Now, let's see if we get a Triome check. I don't see a Triome here for Christopher. I see a couple Houndfounds, a Mystic Gate. So only, unfortunately for Cat, only going to be able to blow up 2 lands. How sad.
Yeah, 2 lands now, 2 lands the next turn, 2 lands with the Titan on the way out if it dies, which it has to for Chris not to die as well. So a lot of land destruction for the LD fans in chat out there.
So instead of calling this Monogreen Tron, can we just call it Monogreen Ponza?
We could. Monogreen Ramp, Monogreen Ring, I suppose, maybe is the new order of things as well.
And Christopher here, going to go ahead and fetch out a Zagoth Triumph.
Brave. Okay. So assuming, therefore, the Titan will not resolve, otherwise, yeah. But that Ulamog, on the one hand, very difficult to tell what that is. On the other hand, it just tells you in big letters, this is Ulamog. So kind of cuts both ways there.
All right. And then we do see a Leyline Binding taking care of the Ulamog. And we will have to see. Now, Christopher, like we said, did go ahead and fetch that Zagoth Triumph, which, as you mentioned, likely means there's a counterspell for the Sundering Titan. How about the second Ulamog, Dom?
Dear God.
Oh, baby. Oh, man. And this is kind of why we talked about this is just the nightmare matchup for blue-white control. Just all of these threats, just an endless stream of threats that are really hard for Chris to be able to deal with. And even if there is an answer, a lot of the threats, just like the Ulamogs and the Cityscape Levelers that we talked about, a lot of these threats just end up replacing themselves or getting you some amount of value on the way out the door, even if they are countered. Now we get a Shark Typhoon here, which can maybe kind of put some pressure, but Cat's at 25, so it's it's going to be really hard. that 2/2 Shark's going to have to do a lot of work.
That's the other issue too, is one way you could win, as these control decks in the past, was you stick a Planeswalker, and then you just answer everything that comes your way, and eventually the Planeswalker will ultimate, or as a source of pressure in some way. You take up your Teferi, turn after turn, maybe ultimate it. This list does not even have any cards like that. No Planeswalkers, no the One Ring to just fill your hand full of counterspells. You kind of have to trade with everything, and then you win with Solitude Beatdown, like a 3/3 Shark token here or there. That's just not fast enough when Tron is doing stuff like this.
Yeah, honestly, Christopher's best path to victory, it might just be something like a Hall of Heliod's Generosity. Or no, that's not the right hall. I'm thinking of Hall of Storm Giants. Never mind. Okay, that's not even the right hall. Yeah, our only win conditions are really, like you said, Shark Typhoons, Solitudes, Kahiras. This is just classic Wafo-Tapa blue-white. I guess you could call it Nassif with no win conditions, but again, Solitude's kind of a win condition. But yeah, it's really, really going to come back to bite Christopher in a matchup like this, where it doesn't really have that kind of time to be able to attack 7 times with a Solitude. Cat's draw step is, on average, is so good that you need to be able to get the game over with as quick as possible.
Yeah, that leveler was... It blew up a binding that got back an Ulamog, so that's 2 threats, even through a counterspell coming back. And then, even if there's an answer for one of them, the other one is unbeatable too. Like, it's just... No, this is such a struggle here. I admire Shavers for sticking in the game for this long, but I don't know how much longer this game is going to take.
I mean, it's the classic blue-white control player. For people, I don't know Shavers personally, but there's people, the blue-white control players who they have been playing against Tron for so long, but there's something about the blue-white control mindset where they never concede, kind of a Reed Duke mindset. But yeah, the Cityscape Leveler going to work. Can I get back another Ulamog? This is just, this is a lot, and yeah, this is a lot. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. We do see Christopher has Chalice for 1 there, which in the setup turns is actually a really nice play against Tron, because so many of their setup cards, the spheres, the stars, maps, stirrings, and so on, they all cost 1. So you shut off a quarter of the deck. Sometimes that will stop them assembling Tron. You strand them with a few dead cards. That is a way that you can buy yourself a lot of time. But that's a play for 6 turns ago. It's not a play for right now when Cityscape Leveler is just bashing your brains in.
Yeah, especially killing the binding that gets back the Ulamog, and then the next turn killing the binding that just killed the Ulamog to get back the Ulamog. It's going to be a lot. And to nobody's surprise, we see Cat taking down game 1, and we'll see if we can maybe get game 2 here in just a moment. Well, quicker than I thought it was going to be. We have game 2 here.
Talk about the sideboards here. Yeah, right into it. Yeah, so as we mentioned, Christopher really does not have that many tools in the sideboard for this matchup. Not even the Crumble to Dust or anything like that, which some of these lists just splash for just by itself. We got another Chalice. We got some Dovin's Vetoes. Like, okay, but nothing that's gonna really move the needle there. And then Cat on the other side, they have some Haywire Mites in the sideboard. You can imagine those as an answer to your preemptive answer to Chalice, and then maybe to Binding and so on as well. There was a main deck Stonebrain. I don't know if we want 2 of those in the main deck, none of those, whatever, but I honestly don't think it really matters that much.
No, I mean, Cat could probably... Honestly, this matchup is good enough where Cat could probably just take all of their entire sideboard, shuffle it in, present 75, and still just be like, okay, what's up? But, obviously not going to do that. Where, Christopher just really doesn't have a lot here.
Devin, chat is asking a crucial question. Is Cityscape Leveler a Hogak?
Oh,
it's an 8/8 trample.
8/8. That's a good point. So
and
is every single 8/8,
and it comes back from the graveyard.
Ooh, okay.
And, you pay mana for it, but it's Tron, right? So you're cheating the mana system anyway. Like, whatever. It's a Hogak to me, in my heart.
All right. So we're playing Mono Green Hogak. All right, noted. Now, let's see if we can maybe see a Hogak sighting potentially this game. When you were going over Christopher's sideboard, I was actually thinking if we could just bring in Containment Priest and just go beatdown mode, but I don't know if we're going to go that far.
I like the Moxie there. I don't know if it's going to work, but sure. If we're that desperate, then why not?
Oh,
now the problem there, you see, is Containment Priest. Containment Priest is not an elemental. It's not a beast. It's not a dinosaur. It's not whatever the other type is. So we're going to lose our Kahira if we do that, which also is maybe our other source of pressure. So
true.
Kind of cuts both ways there.
All right. Well, I guess, I didn't even think about that. Now that Kahira's been revealed, no beatdown plans this game. We see a fetch land here for Christopher. We got a couple of Chromatic Stars here for Cat, not choosing to sacrifice either of them. And have to see what Christopher can get. Obviously wants something like a Teferi Time Raveler, which could... Is Teferi even that good against Tron? It's like, I guess you can bounce a Chromatic Star, but, does that even really matter that much? It's really just an uphill battle for Christopher. Oh, just au natural. All right, the Natty Tron here for Cat. Let's see if they have a payoff. That looks like a payoff to me. I would qualify that as a payoff.
Yes, I know some people have said that maybe Khan liberated itself. The iconic Tron threat is past its prime a little bit. You can shave down on copies of that card, but you get turn 3 Tron into Khan. That still is going to beat basically everybody, and you force them to have an answer, which Christopher does here. But I imagine Khan is not the final threat that will be presented this game.
No, probably not. Especially, with the Natty Tron, I did see 2 white border cards in Cat's hand, so it looks like they have at least a couple of lands in hand. We'll have to see if there's a payoff. Maybe can find a payoff off of this Chromatic Star. I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of looting. See if we can find 2 mana floating plus 5 more. Okay, so Stirrings, which we have 1 floating plus 5 more. That's 6 mana potential, which means no Ulamog this turn, even if there is a tower, because that would only get us to 9. And Ancient Stirrings finds a map, which is not really what you're looking for. You want to find maybe a more expensive card. Can sacrifice the map to go and grab the Sanctum of Ugin. which can, if we have another follow-up threat, that can get sacrificed to find another threat.
Interestingly, Catsless has a single copy of Urza Saga. One Urza Saga, not a count that you often see on a deck list, but in a deck that has 8 ways to 2 different lands, sometimes if you need a threat, like that's a pretty good threat that on the back end in 2 or 3 turns, that can get another map to get the next threat and so on.
Yeah, that is a good point. That's why you only play one Urza Saga. Well, it honestly it makes sense because you don't really want to play Urza Saga in the first couple of turns, given that you want to play Tron on the first 3 turns. So it's kind of like the perfect one of in these spots where you already have Tron and you're kind of like just want another payoff because usually your maps are kind of dead past that point. So it does kind of make a lot of sense. Now, Cat did go for the Sanctum, which leads me to believe that they are looking at maybe firing up a potential big spell here. And that was kind of a cool interaction. So we go end step Solitude, untap to Fairy, pick up Solitude, draw a card. Or not Solitude, Subtlety. And then we have Subtlety and Counterspell potentially available. But Subtlety, not that great against Ulamog, Dom.
Yeah. I will put that one on top and I will cast it again. Thank you. Please and thank you.
Yep, so it's the Ulamog's going to trade for a counterspell and 2 lands, and Cat's also going to find another threat here. This is I don't know. This is a tough one.
Could be second Ulamog. Could be that Sundering Titan.
Yeah, there is the Ulamog.
If that could work. Or just a leveler, yeah.
If the first Ulamog's not good enough, surely the second one's good enough. And if the second one's not good enough, well, I don't know where I was going with that joke, but yeah, looks like Cat's going to go ahead, and that is 9 mana. Yeah, we knew about the Saga. Going after Teferi. I mean, honestly, I kind of want to just go after lands. I don't even know if I care about Teferi.
I would be, yeah.
All right, so sacrifice.
Yeah, I would be tempted just to go after the lands too, but really, I think Cat just kind of toying with their food at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. This is that point on Moto where you're just like decisions at random. Shuffle my hand, play the top card, nothing matters, and I mean that's at least what it feels like to us. And the nice thing about Christopher's just having a good time over there. I do appreciate that. Just getting all of his lands blown up, and is just like, I'm here to have a good time.
Is he?
I mean, he's smiling.
I don't want to speak for Christopher, but
all right.
I would bet he has enjoyed the previous rounds in this tournament probably more than this one. I don't know. Just saying.
It's a fair point.
Just saying.
Oh. You see, you've dealt with all of them. You see,
I respect Christopher for sticking it out, though. Like, I would have been out of there just minutes ago. I'd be out of the building by now. But Christopher, giving us content.
The Ulamogs were just bait, Dom. They were bait for the real threat, which was Giganta. And Giganta, unfortunately, was dealt with. But we can just play that bad boy next turn. All right, Saga token and Saga being sacrificed. Chapter 3. What are we going to go ahead and get? Maybe just a cantrip artifact, potentially a map. Now, we did mention there was only 1 copy of Urza Saga, so we can't get that. We've already exhausted our copy of Sanctum, so past that, probably the next best thing to get off of map would be a Boseiju, which is, pretty good insurance in case Christopher has something like a Leyline Binding, and that is a Stone Brain. And that is enough for Christopher. That is going to do it. Cat going to take this match 2-0 over Christopher Shavers as we expected.
All right, so we will send you to a quick video in the meantime. We'll be back here with more Magic, more updates on the tournament before too long, but don't go anywhere in the meantime. Stay tuned.